The concept of the grocery store has remained largely unchanged for decades, but the many aisles full of every item you could think of was far from the status quo as the United States entered the 1900s. Customers wouldn't even grab the items they wanted, as it was the employee's job to go get them for the customer. That is, until Clarence Saunders decided to shake up the industry by forcing his customers to go get their own groceries off the shelves in the first self-service grocery store. The idea was ridiculed at the time, but would quickly launch Saunders into fame as one of the most successful entrepreneurs of his time, only to have it all come crashing down before him, leaving him bankrupt and removed from the company he once created. This is the story of Piggly Wiggly, and this is Learn Something New. In 1904, Clarence Saunders, then just 23 years old, moved to Memphis, Tennessee with his wife Amy, whom he had married the previous year. After gaining 10 years of experience there in the wholesale grocery business, he began to wonder if there was some way to make the grocery store more efficient to serve Memphis's booming population. You see, for many years leading up to the 1900s, stores generally looked the same. You would enter the store and hand the clerk your list of what you wanted, and the employee would go around the store and gather the items for you. But there were inherent inefficiencies with this arrangement. Smaller stores struggled if there was a surge of customers who had to wait for the clerks to become available, and larger stores, especially in urban areas, had to hire small armies of clerks at great expense to serve the ever-growing number of customers. Yet, if the store was slow, you still had to pay the clerks who were just standing idly by. Saunders would come up with a solution, premiering it from an unassuming corner of Middle America, and somewhat unexpectedly giving it the odd name Piggly Wiggly. On September 6, 1916, Saunders opened his first Piggly Wiggly grocery store at 79 Jefferson Street in downtown Memphis. The weird name was intentionally different and attention-getting for marketing purposes. Though when asked why he came up with it, Saunders would only answer, "So people will ask that very question." Customers entered the store through a turnstile where they picked up a basket to put their things in. The floor plan was designed to force the shopper to proceed on a one-way path that zigzagged through every aisle in the store. This was a very deliberate design. In the patent application he filed just after the store opened, Saunders said the customer will be enabled to serve himself and in doing so will be required to review the entire assortment of goods carried in stock. The store was designed around the idea of an impulse buy, and many modern stores were inspired by Saunders' approach and apply his principles of carefully pathing, at times to the frustration of the type of customer who wants to get in and out quickly. The layout of the store was also clearly designed to reduce the risk of shoplifting. There was only one entrance to the store which was protected by one-way turnstiles, and after being forced to march past the store's entire inventory, shoppers could only leave by going past the checkout clerks on the other end of the store who manned the cash registers near the exits. Saunders implemented several other important innovations with his first store. Price tags were placed on the shelves in front of the items, so shoppers could easily see how much something costs without having to pick it up and examine it. Shoppers were also given a paper receipt so that they could be confident that they were being charged the proper amount for what they had purchased. The day the first Piggly Wiggly opened, shoppers were greeted with flowers, balloons, and live music. Some of the shoppers were apprehensive about taking the items off the shelves themselves, asking the employees for assistance. But on Saunders' orders, the employees politely refused to help the customers so that they could get used to the new system. Although many predicted this new store would fail, as they theorized that shoplifting would put them out of business, it instead proved to be exactly the opposite. Piggly Wiggly was quickly a wild success, with impulse purchases more than making up for any shoplifting losses. Saunders then began to sell the concept as a franchise, and just after a year of opening, it was a chain with 9 stores. From there, the company grew at a breakneck pace, and by the early 1920s was the third largest grocery chain in the country, with nearly 1,300 stores in 29 states. Saunders had achieved levels of success he never thought possible. His company was worth $100 million, and he began to develop a taste for the wealthy life. He built a massive mansion out of pink Georgian marble, which he called the Pink Palace. The 36,500 square foot mansion, which had everything from a bowling alley to a shooting gallery, was on 160 acres of land outside of Memphis, for which he had plans to make an 18-hole golf course with one hole located on its own island. But before Saunders' many ideas could come to fruition, he would lose everything. After finding out about a significant portion of Wall Street short sellers betting against Piggly Wiggly, Saunders attempted to screw them over and take back full control of the stake in his company. He borrowed millions of dollars to buy back shares of his company's stock, driving up the price. His plan was beginning to work, but when the New York Stock Exchange barred Piggly Wiggly from being traded on the exchange, giving the explanation that such a concentration of holdings makes a free market for the stock impossible, his plan fell apart, and now those he had borrowed money from wanted it back. Holding more than 100,000 shares of Piggly Wiggly that were rapidly depreciating in value, and with no place to sell them, Saunders desperately took out newspaper ads to get people to buy his shares. He even asked Henry Ford, one of the richest men in the country at the time, for a bailout, but nothing worked. In August of 1923, Saunders resigned as president of Piggly Wiggly, and, in declaring bankruptcy, relinquished all of his property, including his stock, his cars, even the Pink Palace, to his creditors. Some of the shares, once valued at over $150 per, were sold for just $1. Saunders refused to give up on his career, however, and went on to found a number of new companies, becoming a millionaire once again, and even owned a football team. But he never again found the kind of success that he had achieved with Piggly Wiggly. Piggly Wiggly itself would continue to reach new heights without Saunders. The chain peaked in 1932 with 2,660 stores. There was even one last innovation for the chain even without Saunders, the wheeled nesting shopping cart, introduced in 1937. The Great Depression, of course, impacted the company, but it was really the competition from other grocery stores that had copied the self-service concept that caused Piggly Wiggly to begin its decline. Once the self-service concept had become the standard, there was little to differentiate or make Piggly Wiggly stand out. Today, there are only about 500 stores, mostly located in America's southern states. But if Piggly Wiggly owned the patent for a self-serving store, how were others copying the concept? Well, when an imitation grocery store called Jitney Jungle started in 1930, Piggly Wiggly was quick to launch a lawsuit. But during the trial, the defendant pointed out that Saunders himself wasn't even the first to create a self-service store. A small chain in California had created a self-service model in 1915, over a year before Piggly Wiggly was started. The store, called Alpha Beta, because all items were put on the shelves alphabetically to help customers find what they were looking for, wasn't nearly as big of a hit as Piggly Wiggly, but helped the judge come to the conclusion that the patent Saunders had filed, which talks about the restrictive path the aisle takes within the store to guide customers, was the only aspect that was protected, and this aspect of the store was notably the part that the customers hated the most. Since the Jitney Jungle and most other copycats didn't employ the single continuous passageway, it was free to continue its operation. The judge also ruled that the idea that customers could grab their own groceries off the shelves could not be patented. But while Piggly Wiggly may not have won its court cases defending the patents for a self-serving store, there is no denying the fact that the success of Piggly Wiggly is what popularized the concept. Clarence Saunders likely had no idea the impact his concept would have on the way nearly every grocery store is designed today, but he was always thinking of ways to improve upon the customer experience. Even with the success of Piggly Wiggly, he knew that there was room for improvement. When he died in October of 1953 at the age of 72, he was experimenting with a chain of machine-automated grocery stores that used conveyor belts and electronic keys instead of employees. According to his obituary, in his later days he would often drive by the Pink Palace, which he had never actually gotten the chance to live in, since it wasn't finished at the time. And he would say, "If I never did anything else, there's that, and it'll be there as long as the pyramids stand." The Pink Palace is now owned by the city of Memphis, and was converted into a museum. Thanks for watching! If you enjoyed this video, it would really mean a lot if you gave it a like, subscribed, and shared it. Thanks again, and I will see you in the next one.